welcome to this latest episode of the ReWine, where we rewind the latest in entertainment and pop culture news. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
Thank you for joining us this week. There is so much going on in the news lately, Tammy. It's so hard to know where to start. But I think I'll start at one of my favorite places. BTS and Butter was number one on our Billboard Hot 100 for the sixth week in a row. Yay! Yay! You're not excited?
Yay. No, that's an amazing thing that they've accomplished with this single. And it just continues to grow their stardom in America. And that's amazing to see that people are really like opening up their musical taste to this group because they're awesome.
Yeah, and K-pop is growing globally and in America in the West, but I think we were really the last ones to kind of like catch on here, and with this being the entertainment capital of the world, I think once they break down that barrier, they truly will have climbed the Mount Everest of the entertainment world. But they also made history in doing so. With this being the sixth week in a row, they're the first Asian act to hold the number one spot this long. They previously held it. I think not Butter, but Dynamite was number one 3 weeks, but not in a row. And then Savage Love was number one. I think it could have done better if Jason Derulo had not pissed off Army. But after he pissed off Army, they showed him what Savage Love was about, because they literally dropped that
It was a
song.
rap.
It was a rap, so But they're also the first duo or group to be number one this long in the 21st century. The last time you had a duo/group that held the number one spot for this long was 1995. And I would ask you, do you know what song? But you're the wrong person to play music trivia with.
So who was the group?
Oh, well, see, we've been talking a long time, so my voice is not all warmed up, and I can't hit the notes. But it was Mariah.
I said who was the group? I ain't asked you to sing the song to me, Eddie. Don't do it, Eddie.
I can't do it right now. My voice ain't warmed up. It's not right.
So who was the group, Eddie?
I wouldn't want to do that to the audience. Mariah Carey and Boyz II Men, their collab on One Sweet Day. I love that song. It's a great song.
I love that song.
Yeah, so that was the last duo group to hold the number one spot for this long. 1995, baby, 1995.
That was the year. A duo, like, I mean, that was a duo, but I mean, like, do we know like what was the last actual like group?
I think the last. Well, they do duo group together, but I think the actual last group, I want to say it was Aerosmith, but it was still in the 90s. It wasn't in the quote unquote 21st century.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but that was the last one, duo/group, and I don't think Aerosmith held it for 6 weeks. I think they've just broken Aerosmith's record. So, and they also released their new song, Permission to Dance. So now it's going to be a battle of the charts. If Permission to Dance comes out at number one, if it dethrones Butter, it won't be this week. I think Butter might get a 7th week, and then the following week is when Permission to Dance would actually land on the chart. So it's kind of like a week behind. Also, 17, yay! They debuted on the Billboard Hot 200, which is the album charts, for the first time ever, and they debuted in the top 20 with their album. And I know we both we didn't dislike the album, but neither one of us were too crazy about it. But it's growing on me a little bit more. Still not my favorite 17 album, but I'm happy for them. And TXT also landed in the top 200. I think they were at 195 with Chaos Freeze Chapter, which was their first time in the Billboard Hot 200. So congratulations to some of our favorite K-pop groups and the success that they're experiencing on those charts. And speaking of albums, I know you had some news about JYP and how Karma is a bitch and hitting him upside his ass.
He should have learned.
You gonna learn today, homie.
Yes. So the first half 2021 album sales are out. And SM is number one, with NCT coming out with 3 different albums for their 3 different units, because NCT has 1,000,001 members. EXO did extremely well for their comeback.
Loved it.
Yep, Super Junior, Shiny, that's my group, Shiny, Taemin, definitely put SM over the hill on being the number 1 album sales out of the big 4. Big Hit was number 2, but not because of BTS, which I automatically just thought, then I realized BTS didn't really come out with anything. But 17, their number 1 seller, as well as TXT and Hyphen and Newest, which we don't listen to, and I don't focus on Newest, but they up there. And then 3 is JYP. And what the article said that I read was that what really hit JYP hard is that they did end up losing their biggest group, GOT7. All right, everybody knows how much we love GOT7. GOT7 was their biggest group. And when they left, that hit them hard. And so it ends up being that none of their boy groups really did as well as their girl groups. So I guess GOT7 leaving allowed their girl groups like Twice and ITZY to really shine and to really be put forth. But before that, it was GOT7. So they did feel the hit. He is feeling the hit over losing all the members of GOT7, none of them re-signing with his company. And then last is YG, which is the home of Blackpink. But Blackpink is more on their image. So YG is more of an image company right now. So Blackpink, Treasure, Winner. And then my group Icon, who did well just because of Bobby's comeback, even though it was cut short. So that is out of the big 4, SM, Big Hit's number 2, JYP, and then YG.
Yeah, just to hit on that real quickly. Big Hit, because I when you first told me, I was like, damn, BTS. But then you have to think about the only album BTS really dropped last year was B. Well,
it's not counting last year. Like, it's literally from January 1st, 2021. Like, they're only counting what was released, and they only released Butter.
Yeah, they've only released singles, but TXT they've released 2, I think, and Hyphen has released 2, 3 if you count the Japanese album that they just dropped, and then 17. So yeah, that does make sense. And JYP, Karma, like I said, Karma is a bitch, and it seems like they put that Color Purple Whoopi Goldberg to You Do Right, Miss Celie root on them to You Do Right by Me.
You right. But okay, so one thing I do want to say about JYP is, okay, so we had a whole discussion about this, and we talked about 2PM's comeback, right? And we said when we were watching the comeback, we felt like it was a business decision, right? That, like, we was in agreement with that, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we felt like it was a business decision. Well, that business decision did very well for JYP, because besides Day 6, which is like a band, like if you listen to our K-pop comeback, they're like a band like N-Flying, right? They play instruments and everything like that, and they sing. So Day 6 did very well, but 2PM was like, 2PM is like a 2nd generation, 3rd generation group, and they did extremely well. So like, when you think about it, you're like, well, dang, like, y'all really did get hit with losing GOT7, because even 2PM was like, it was a big deal when 2PM came out. Like, that was a great business decision that JYP made. I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah, but entertainment wise, it wasn't. I mean, business for what it is, for I guess their popularity, like, at the height of 2PM's popularity, we weren't K-pop fans, so I can't say I understood it. I was excited and I liked the preview that I heard, but I wasn't crazy about any of it that I've seen thus far. Yeah, so
they're just really good looking dudes that sold.
But it sucks because, on one hand, not to get too far into this before we get into other stuff, we were talking about how we love, like, Bam Bam's success. Bam Bam had a successful comeback. He's still doing all his other stuff, his hosting and his gigging. And we may not have been crazy about the final product. It was okay, but it was still a success for him and his company.
Yeah.
But Yogium, dude, AOMG, that was money well fucking spent. Like,
but they wouldn't have done that if they had, like, what I think is, thank God they left.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at is, JYP wouldn't have invested any of that into Yogi or Bam Bam or their comeback. I don't even think they would have been able to make this type of music do what they wanted to do if they would have stayed with JYP. So it's just like, and he's feeling it because it was great. So I'm just waiting to see what my boy JB does. So we'll see. And also, we were talking about this earlier. The COVID situation in Asia is getting worse thanks to the Delta variant, and no one's talking about it. I was reading or I saw a story about how Seoul is about to go. They're thinking about putting Seoul back on a really strict lockdown because of the Delta variant. And some places here in the United States, which we're not really talking about either, there are hospitals reaching last year's levels, like in emergency room and running emergency room capacity and running out of equipment and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens, and if we are going to be able to get out of 2021 and have a somewhat more of a normal return to 2022. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of COVID and the cluster, how it continues, how Rona and her fucking mutated cousins continue to fuck up our lives. Why don't we turn our attention to the Olympics and the clusterfuck that it is? I believe the last time we talked about this, my exact words were, the Olympics are going to be a clusterfuck.
And she was right.
You were trying to be optimistic and go from the point of, hey, these athletes have worked so hard. And I get that. That was never the question to me. It was, given everything that's going on, there's no way we should be trying to put the athletes through this and we'll take it from Delta. We'll take it from Rona and go down to the most egregious shit. Like Rona, they can't really control. I get that. We fucked this up on a worldwide level from beginning to end. And now we keep trying to play catch up and get out of it. But to go from 2 weeks ago, which is the last time we talked about this, 2 weeks ago, to having spectators and having stadiums full to maybe 5,000 to 10,000 people, to Tokyo being put back on a fucking lockdown, to not having any spectators, to NBC still has all this money invested, because that was one of the things we talked about, is whether NBC should actually show the Olympics or not. But now you have all this money invested, all this TV time, all this advertisement, and guess what? They're not going to have any spectators at any of the events now.
And that's what they deserve.
And so I was just like, and a tennis player has dropped out, Nick Kyrgios, who's I don't know his ranking, but he's ranked pretty high. He's one of the more popular ones on the men's circuit. He dropped out, and he was like, dude, it's not the same without spectators. Some other people have dropped out, but not too many have dropped out just yet, And then, of course, the people that we could talk about the people that they just won't allow to run. Where to begin with that? The Nigerian women who were banned because they had too much natural testosterone in their system. I don't understand that.
Is there a certain level that they can have, right? Or, and if their bodies have above that level, then they're considered to have an advantage over other female runners?
But if it's natural, like, is it my fault that my body?
I get that. Like, I get that it's natural, and it's not me like disparaging them for like just having their natural level of testosterone. But they do have like only a certain amount that you can have in order to qualify as being a female runner, and their levels go above whatever it is you need to qualify as a female runner, because you're seen as having too much. You're seen as having an advantage. Like it's like I feel like my response would be like a catch-22, like a two-edged sword, because I definitely get like banning them from running. They're females, they identify themselves as women. Like I definitely get that, but when you look at the science of it in a way, like, does that give them a little bit more of an advantage on running when they're running against other females who would have a way lower level of testosterone in their system, or in their with DNA? I don't know.
Well, but that's the thing is though that's what I'm saying. It's natural. So you're basically punishing them for something they have no control over.
Yes,
Like so, but is that fair?
life is not fair.
I
I
I'm not.
because okay, so I look at it like, okay, I understand, like, you want to run. I get that, but at the same time, like, do you have some type of advantage over female runners who don't go above the level that you can have to qualify for the Olympics? Because there's a reason why, like, even when we have the like, they literally just started, what was it, last Olympics or maybe two Olympics ago, where they have like the co-ed relays, and you can even see the difference in them running and competing, right? On when they even have the co-ed relay races and relay teams, you can see the difference on when the men are running against the women. Like, not to, I don't want to, like, some people take this wrong, but I'm just gonna put it out. So do they have that type of advantage? A little bit more of an advantage, being that they do have higher levels of testosterone. And I understand, like, it would seem fair, but if you naturally are having a more of an advantage because of your testosterone level, we may not necessarily agree with the decision of the Olympics, but I understand their decision that they made on not allowing them to race in the female races.
Okay. Well, allow them to race in the male races if that's how you're going to look at it. If
So
they're
they can
not,
get beat.
well, that's the thing. If they're too strong, if they have too much to run with women, let them run with men. And then on the other thing, basically, track and
But it's not
field.
a it's not a code, like, there's
So
still there's still
It's too much to call for me for my naturally selected spot as a woman, and I'm trying to run as a woman. And we won't even get into the transgender woman that they banned from the Olympics along the same lines of this. But so I'm too much of a woman, but I don't have enough to compete with the men. Make it make sense. And then considering that these women, they compete all year round, and not necessarily the IOC, but in events, other professional track events. Have they won every race that they've competed in? And seeing them compete professionally against these same people, how have they done there? How have they stacked up there? Have you seen this give them an unfair advantage? So what makes it different from them being able to compete professionally in sports, in a sport where they still test these things, versus when it comes to the Olympics? I guess that's my question. So you're just not going to let them compete. Hey, you're too much of a woman, but you're not enough of a man. So you
yes.
just get to sit at home, and something you've trained your whole life for. And again,
But my thing is
based
that, like, didn't they know that this was going to come up and possibly be an issue? Like, and did they just think that because we had this story, what was it, like 3 Olympics ago, where we had this story, this issue came up. So, like, when it's like, did they not even think that it would be a possibility that they wouldn't be allowed to compete in the Olympics because of the level of testosterone that they naturally have in their body? Because this was a storyline before. So was it just that they were going to test it out and see how it goes and see if they could get through? And now, like, they have such a disappointment on the fact that they've been banned from, because I just feel like if you, like, you knew you had high levels of testosterone naturally in your body. So, and you should have known the story that came up a couple years ago, where they took her medals away, or something like that happened in the Olympics. So how was this not a conversation where, there was going to be a possibility that you were not going to be able to compete in the Olympics just because of the rules that they have?
Well, I think that there needs to be something done. You should not unless there's a way to lessen their testosterone. And again, I'm not a doctor. I only don't even play one on TV. Maybe one day, someone, Grey's Anatomy, are you hiring? But anyway, I just think that it's unfair to punish somebody for something that they don't have any control over, especially the natural, if it's natural, is there a way that they can like get rid of it, secrete it, or, you know, get an injection to remove it? I don't know. Again, that's above my pay grade, but so allow them to compete either
No,
as a man or a woman.
I would disagree.
Okay.
I would disagree on having them compete.
But going to someone else that was banned from the Olympics, this story I I have problems with for different reasons. Sha'Carri Richardson, I remember watching the Olympic trials and seeing her dust everybody in the 100, and I was so excited and so happy. I mean, she booked. It was a thing of beauty. I still go back and watch it on YouTube to this day, and I love to watch track and field. Hate to run it, but so I was excited, and then come to find out she's been suspended for a month because she tested positive for weed. And the reason why she smoked is she found out that her biological mom had died after an event from the press, and that was her coping mechanism, I guess, to deal with the anxiety, the stress, all of that. Is she went and she smoked, um, and she knew the rules. She knew she tested positive. She knew what would happen. Again, and it happened. But I think the thing everyone is more upset about, and she took responsibility for it. She didn't make any excuses. She owned up to it, all of that. But I think the thing that everyone is upset about is that the Olympics arbitrarily, or their outdated testing for marijuana, which is not a performance enhancing drug. And when most other leagues, most of the other professional sport leagues have stopped testing for marijuana because they know that in this day and age, in 2021 of our Lord and Savior, that if they tested, they probably would not have anybody playing, you know. So, what did you think about that?
Oh, she knew the rules. She broke the rules, and she's willing to accept the consequences of her breaking the rules. Like I'm not on the plane. I'm not on the side of excusing you using weed to cope with trauma and everything else. I think that is a toxic way that we need to have a real conversation about it, on people using weed to like just kind of whatever they use it for. It's not a good positive coping mechanism that you should use. And she knew that and she did it. And I understand. I fully get the fact that it was traumatic, like news that she got, and she just automatically turned to that. I get it. Like it was a very, very sad thing that happened that led to that. But at the same time, like those are the rules. Other people have had to follow those same rules before the Olympics, and she broke them. So, and she accepts those consequences. So I'm not on the side of weed being okay. Like I'm just not on the side of that. So I don't have a like strong
So,
reaction on how dare they do this. And she was fast. She was absolutely phenomenal. I also watched the trials. She was absolutely phenomenal, amazing. Very sad to know that she will not be competing in the Olympics, but I am not against what ended up happening, because she did end up smoking weed and getting caught.
well, what about the doctors who prescribe it for as anti-anxiety medication? I mean, I know this wasn't prescribed, but it is in states where it's legal, and it has
But it
been for
wasn't
a while.
prescribed. Like
I
that's my
understand
that's
that.
my but that I'm not a weed advocate. I'm just not. That's just not where I stand. I'm not a weed advocate. I don't agree on it being. I think it's a very toxic way, because people have taken something that could be used to kind of like level you out and deal with anxiety, and it's just mainly used for recreation. Like people just smoke it just to smoke it. So like medically, that's a whole nother thing. I'm not a doctor, but when it comes to you weren't prescribed it and you chose to do it, then that is the consequences of you getting caught smoking weed. And like I'm not against the consequences that she has to suffer through. Like I'm not against that. I fully get the situation that she was in. I get the sad stories that she has. And I understand people who are just like, oh, that was just really horrible what she heard at the time, and she did what she did, and or people who are for weed, go for it. That's your opinion. But my opinion is I'm not one of those people. And I'm okay with the fact that she has to suffer the consequences of breaking the rules. Those were the rules. Other people have been following those rules for a very long time. She broke those rules, and these are the consequences that she has to suffer for breaking those rules.
So you were okay with them leaving her off of the relay teams too, even
No,
though
that's
she
a
could have.
whole that is a whole different thing. That had not, like, them actually not choosing to have her on there. I think that was them going too far on making her suffer. I do think that that was them going too far on suffering, because she qualified for the relay race afterwards. I'm talking about her not being able to run in her race, which is the 100-meter dash. Like, her not being able to compete, and that's what I'm talking about. On that, I'm okay with the fact that she's not going to be able to compete in the 100-meter dash. But when her suspension is over and she is actually able to run in the relay, and they still chose not to choose the fastest woman on record, like, that was a stupid decision that the US Olympic team made. But other than that, like, I'm okay with her being suspended for the race.
Okay. Um, I have mixed feelings. I understand. I do have mixed feelings about it. I understand the rules are the rules. When the arbitrariness of it being enforced, we can. That's a different story for a different day. Um, I I'll leave that alone because that's a whole nother can of worms that leads to a different conversation. I do think that we fall on a different place on the whole weed spectrum. I think that they should probably revisit the testing for that, especially given how prevalent it is in the society and how it is legal in a lot of places in Europe and how it's becoming more legal in a lot more states here in the United States. So I think they might need to take a look at that. And
Wait,
Team USA, I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say I agree with you on that point, Eddie. I do agree. I don't think that they should still be testing for weed. Like, I I think that, just like you said, in other sports they don't test because they know, like, they lose a lot of their players. I do think it's ridiculous. And it's not a performance enhancing drug. I'm just on the side of, I understand she's the fastest woman. I understand everybody was so excited for her to be in the Olympics, but at the same time, and I'm in agreement with the fact that she broke the rules and she has to suffer the consequences of being suspended. But I do want to say, like, Oregon legalized weed. She was in Oregon at the time, so she was legally smoking weed, but she just happened to get tested, which I think they shouldn't test it anymore. And I think that's a conversation that's definitely going to come up now that she was suspended from her key race. I think that they are going to have a conversation about not testing weed anymore, just because there are a lot of countries that don't do it anymore. My whole thing is, right now they do test it. Right now she got caught, and right now she suffers the consequences.
Yeah, and like I said, that to me, that's a mixed bag. I understand the rules, and again, the arbitrariness of it being applied. We can talk about a whole different show. I agree with you on Team USA. They fucked up. They should have let her run. The excuse that they gave for not letting her run was really weak. It was bullshit. So, but she can dominate at the Worlds in a couple of years, and she can dominate at the next Olympics. So, and then the other way, the soul caps. Our hair is different. And I remember having to tell my friends when I was younger, don't touch my hair, don't play with my hair. No, I don't wash my hair every other day. We've all, as Black women, Black people, we've all had to talk about the different textures of our hair versus our white friends and counterparts, or our people who are not Black and who are not mixed, who don't have the same type of hair textures we do. And the water does some strange things to our hair. So Soul Cap, they invented these swimming caps that are especially for Black hair, for natural hair. And the Olympics banned them. And they had the nerve to say, because no one's head is naturally shaped like that. So take that as you will.
If that
There's
ain't
no
a
other way
racist
around that
statement, I
racist
don't know what
bullshit.
is.
Thank you. Like, so I tried to stay away from it because sometimes they say we pull the race card, and I'm not trying to pull the race card, but that is fucking racist. Out and out. The IOC, the Olympic Committee, they've been accused of it before. That's one of the big things about the people, not the crazy little fucker who runs the Tokyo Olympics. We all know about his issues. Sexism, racism, misogyny, all of it. I'm talking about the International Olympic Committee. This is right on brand for them. So yeah, so we have to wear caps that don't fit our head, that don't protect our head, if we want to participate, because there's no way that people's heads are naturally that big, and that is a direct quote. So fuck you, IOC.
Okay, so what I will say is I don't understand why they would ban these caps. And the reason why is because it doesn't give an advantage to anybody swimming with these caps. It actually holds you back a little bit. Because people literally wax their whole body of hair in order to so-called swim better. So there's people there's women who cut their hair extremely short in order to swim better, so it doesn't hold them down, the cap fits. But that should not be a requirement of people whose hair grow out rather than down. And because even when they gave their statement, they didn't put race in it. And they said, well, we're not talking about race. We said nothing about African Americans. We said nothing about Black women. And I'm just like, you don't have to say it in order for us to know what you mean and who you're talking about. And that's ultimately what it is. It's for them to say that, but you can't give a reason. Is it giving an advantage to these people?
Yeah.
Are they just automatically going to go ahead because they have a cap that literally is going to hold all their hair in and not fall out while they're in the pool trying to win a race? So yes, very, very racist. Call a spade, and they're a spade, which is a racist.
Yes, and keeping with our sports theme, I know or you've heard that. Let's just put it this way: Jemele Hill was right about ESPN when she left, and I think everyone is starting to realize just how right she was. It's a flaming hot mess of dumpster dog shit. I don't know how to say it. And this next story is just so, I don't know. But so Rachel Nichols, she is white, and she has a show called The Jump. She's been working the NBA finals. And last year, she was caught on a hot mic having a conversation about how she did not want Maria Taylor, who happens to be Black, to host the NBA finals. But Maria hosts NBA Countdown, and generally the host of NBA Countdown is the one who will host the NBA finals. Well, Rachel Nichols, I think, had been promised that job, and she had been the de facto host of the NBA Finals. And so they come to her and they let her know that Maria Taylor would be taking over the job. She said some things. This was at the height of last summer and all of the protesting that was going on. And she said that she understood. She didn't really say anything disparaging about Maria Taylor, but she just said, look, she has all of this stuff. If you want to give her something to do, give her anything else to do but my job. And don't try to take my job away from me to make up for your crappy record on diversity. That was pretty much it, ad-libbed in a nutshell. And the shit has been hitting the fan at ESPN ever since.
Well, it has come out that there was a request made that Maria Taylor did not want to work with Rachel Nichols, and they kind of, ESPN did not react very well to that. They did not deal with that situation very well, on how they handled it, how they addressed the situation. And so, yes, I agree. But then, I mean, come on. Are we surprised? Are we? Because I'm
No,
not.
I'm
Like,
not.
they hire Black people. They hire Black people, and they're like, oh, look, so we're doing what we said we're gonna do. But at the same time, when you look at the higher ups, the higher executives, it is not diverse in who is really making all of the final decisions. All right. So it goes back to the statement. They want our rhythm, but they don't want our blues.
And they don't know how to deal with our blues. You're right. Now so for Rachel Nichols, I understand what she said. I understand what she said in the heat of the moment. I'm not condoning it. I'm not justifying it. I'm not going to out and out call her racist. Did what she said have a bit of racism inferred in it or in the statement? Yes. To automatically assume that that's the reason why they are giving her this job is because she is Black and because of everything else that was going on in the country at the time. Yes, that is a racist assumption to make. So I get that layer to it. I also understand her as a woman who's have to come up through this business or any business, not necessarily wanting them to come and take away something that is yours for her, trying to fight to hold on to her job. I understand that too. I also understand the dynamics of a company, especially run by men and certain types of men, pitting women against each other. And it makes it worse when there is that element of race involved. And so, like I said, when we originally talked about this story has so many layers and so much nuance to it. It's not even fucking funny. And again, I'm going to agree with Jamel Hill when I heard her talk about it. She said it goes back up to even more so than this is about Rachel Nichols and Maria Taylor. It goes back to the way that they fucking run ESPN and who runs ESPN. And you would think that Disney would want to go in and do something to clean up ESPN because this is Disney's brand. They're part of Disney. They're part of that brand, and they're not making it very easy or make it look very good. This is a shit stain on a Disney brand. And quite honestly, I love sports. You know, I'm a huge sports fan, and I used to always watch Sports Center. But over the years, I've watched less and less and less just because of the way I've seen them treat on-air talent of color and the way that the on-air talent of color talk about ESPN when they leave. And it goes from people who don't necessarily get along, who never gotten along, but a lot of the people who worked at ESPN, the people of color who worked at ESPN, they all have the same thing to say when they leave. And so it's just like, wow. But yeah, Maria Taylor didn't want to work with her. They promised her that she wouldn't. So they last year they filmed Rachel's sideline show. They filmed Rachel from the sidelines remotely. And this year she requested that they do the same thing. Well, they went back to her and told her, no, if we do the same thing, we're filming all sidelines remote. And that includes also the Black women who are doing this show. So if you won't work with Rachel, you're not going to work with any of them, which I think was straight bullshit. And what got them off of that was like when Jalen Rose and a lot of the former NBA players who worked the basketball, they were like, no, that's not going to happen, bro. So they stepped in to get that. But it's just a clusterfuck of dumpster fire. And, you know, we'll see what happens. But Rachel Nichols, she was pulled off of the jump. She's not working the NBA finals at all right now. And Maria Taylor has a contract coming up. So we'll see if she actually resigns with ESPN or she takes her talents elsewhere. But
speaking of people who take their talents elsewhere.
Oh, you talking about Nicole Hannah Brown and her boss bitch move?
Yes, I felt like that was a really, really good segue.
I thought so too. Kudos on the segue. That's a good one. Yes, girl. When I grow up, I want to be Nicole Hannah Brown. Like when I'm mature, because we talked about this story before. She is the creator of the 1619 Project. Has she won a Pulitzer? I think she has won a Pulitzer.
Yep, she won a Pulitzer for it.
She writes for the New York Times. She's a prestigious journalist over 20 years. And she had been teaching at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which happened to, by the way, be her alma mater. And I did not know that until recently. So that to me
makes it even more fucked up.
Yes, it makes it so much more fucked up. But we talked about before, we mentioned on previous episode how they didn't want to offer her tenure because they were getting some pressure from some MAGA Trumper donors, super rich donors who, and the position that she had has always been a tenured position. And she had gone through the whole tenure track. She'd done everything she was supposed to do, had unanimous consent from all of her faculty peers, the students. Everybody loved her and wanted her and agreed that she should have tenure. Then at the last minute, they did not offer her tenure. Then when the story became public, all of a sudden they want to reassess their position. And after months of wrangling, and I guess the bad look, they realized how fucking bad this looked on them. They finally offered her tenure. At first, they offered her some little thing. They said, "Okay, you can work this position for 5 years. We'll do everything like it's tenure, but it won't be tenure, and we'll reassess in 5 years." And initially, she accepted that, but then when she thought about it, she's like, "No, you know." So she made them offer her tenure. They finally offered her tenure, and she said, "No, I'm going to Howard."
Howard University, baby.
So Howard has gained two major writing badasses for their creative arts department this year. Tanashi Coates is also going to Howard, be teaching at Howard.
I did hear about that.
And Nicole Hannah Brown. So I love the way she played North Carolina, and she beat them at their own game. Like, I love it.
They deserved it. They deserved it. You treated her like she didn't deserve it. Like they were acting like she did not earn tenure at her alma mater. Like, that's what throws me off even more. Like, this woman is bringing prestige to your university because she graduated from there, and yet this is how y'all treat her. Okay.
And she wanted to be there. Like, when she was talking about this, I think I was watching CBS this morning when she first made the decision, and she was talking to Gayle King about it. You could see just how heartbroken and how sad it is. Like, not that she was going to Howard, it was just that she couldn't stay at her alma mater. She wanted to be at UNC. That was her first choice. And I love the question when, and once it came out that UNC was fucking up, all these other top tier prestigious universities, Stanford, Harvard, all these places, Columbia, they all came for her. They wanted her. And so Gail asked her, "Why didn't you go there instead of Howard?" And she said, she named off all her accomplishments, and she said she's tired of having to prove that she belongs after all that she's accomplished. Why should she still have to prove that she belongs a seat at the table in these white institutions? And so she was like, why not go and teach for her people and her kids and our kids how to be great? And I thought it was just, and I'm ad-libbing the answer was along those lines, but it wasn't a direct quote. But I thought that was a great answer. And, I was just like, and Howard is like the Harvard of HBCU. So, but I was just like, wow, but it made total sense. And I guess hopefully this, even though donors, I get it, they provide a lot of money, they give you a lot of nice things. I hope especially a lot of these public universities or a lot of these universities will stop letting donors run so much. And I know money talks, and I know that's like asking a lot, but donors people are at the point now where they're fighting back. It's not 10, 20 years ago where donors could just do whatever the hell they want. And when people found out, they didn't say anything. Now people are starting to fight back. The kids fought back. The faculty were fighting
Social media has definitely changed the voice on college campuses, and colleges need to step up and realize that we're not going back to the time where you could do stuff in secret and we find out years later. Like, we're finding out right when it happens, and y'all need to make better decisions than what you've been making.
Yeah, because like University of Texas, they were supposed to get rid of that old "Racist Eyes of Texas" song, and they were all for it till the donors stepped in and were like, no, no, no. So now it's like, oh, well, what are you going to do? Well, the kids are still fighting back about that. It's like, oh, so you think they're going to just take it? Like, and I love that. People are not just taking it anymore. And that's why I just say this was such a boss move to me. At first, on first glance, when you read it, when you hear she turned it down, it's like, okay, because they offered her tenure like a week or two ago. And then she turned it down this week. And when you hear that she turned it down, it's like, but this is what you wanted. But then when you hear the reasoning and all the other stuff that went into it, and I agree with her, it's like, how comfortable would I have felt staying at that school, knowing? And she said it was a hard decision because it wasn't about the kids, it wasn't about her peers on the faculty, it was about all the other shit and literally the politics. Like, this wasn't a decision based on her being able to do the job, it was based on purely fucking politics, and the politics which are based on a fucking lie, you know, because again, they want to equate this the 1619 project with critical race theory. And I'm like, can y'all go fucking find out what critical race theory is and stop labeling everything critical race theory? But you know, that's like asking for too much. And speaking of Howard University, another one of their deans made the news. I had no idea that Felicia Rashad was a dean at Howard University. Did you know that?
She literally just started on July 1st. Like,
Oh,
she was offered the position. They announced it in May, but her first official day as dean was July 1st. But they announced it, I think it was like May 12th or something like that. It was announced that she was coming on as dean of the College of Fine Arts.
Oh, so she gonna lose her job before she even get in good, huh? So, you know, as we know, God, Bill Cosby got out of jail on a fucking technicality, and people were, you know, our people sometimes, Black people were so happy that he was out.
Okay, wait. Can I give my statement on this?
Yes, please, because I think we might be in agreement on this one. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you handle this, King.
So I'm gonna just tell you that I have some of these people who are my friends who were so excited about Bill Cosby being released. And before I found out that he was actually released, like, this is when it first came out, didn't really, you know, figure out what happened or anything like that. I was asked, oh, so what you think about Bill Cosby? And I was just like, well, I really don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what happened. And they were so excited. They were like, see, this what happened, you know, and it angers me so much that people do not know how to separate Cosby, the show, from Bill Cosby. Because what I said was, Bill Cosby has always been a fucking asshole. All right. And he has never been for the Black community. So for people who say like, oh, you know, like he's always been for Black people, he has not. He has talked about us and dogged us for years.
Especially those of us who were raised by a single
mother. Exactly. Saying that we were going to be nothing because we were raised by a single mother, which both of us are, and we turned out amazing. So what ends up happening is, because I had to really like look into this to figure out what really went on. He got a shit deal. They made a deal with him in order for the woman who finally got her case to go to civil court, because they felt that it just wasn't enough for criminal court. They got him to say that he was going to come and actually tell the truth about what he did. All right. So he acknowledged and he admitted his crime. Yes, he admitted his crime. He admitted the crime of sexual assault and rape. He did admit that in civil court. A new DA comes into play and they say, oh, well, you made that deal with the old DA. This is a whole new ballpark. So we're going to use everything that you said, the truth that you put out there in civil court, against you. That's how they got him. They sent him to prison. That's the technicality on the fact of saying that they just did not hold up their end of the deal. All right. That is why he got out. No, it does not prove his innocence. He's not innocent. He proved his guilt in civil court. I'm going to need people to really wrap their mind around the fact that he acknowledged his guilt of what he did to that woman, as well as multiple other women in civil court. He got arrested. he was found guilty and he was sent to prison because he's guilty. The only reason he got out was because of technicality, like Eddie said. So I'm gonna need people to wrap their brain around that and stop being all excited and saying about how, oh, he's innocent. Because even that dude come out and say about how he's innocent. Dude, you ain't innocent. You get, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I couldn't have said it better myself. That was I have what you said. I have no disagreement anywhere. When people have come at me with that, I'm like, again, I think sometimes as Black people, we are so used to the injustices perpetrated against us. We confuse when the justice system, when it does work, especially against us, especially against people who were beloved in our community. We mistake that for unfair treatment. But he was guilty and he deserved it. And I'm sick of the Weinstein comparisons. And now Harvey Weinstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, they're using this case to try to say, hey, we want to get out too, or we are innocent too. No, you're not innocent. James Franco bought his way out of fucking whatever. He settled his suit for $2 million. So I'm just sick of them all. And Cosby is disgusting. He's despicable. He deserves to be in jail. He should have been in jail. It was a fucking technicality. This has nothing to do with guilt or innocence. It just has to do with a bad prosecution. Whoever was in the DA's office, they should have known that this was going to be a slippery slope. But also, from what I've read and heard, they said the day that it happened, they had some legal scholars on, and they said that judges, that this is the first time they've heard of something like this, a court overturning something like this, because it wasn't the same DA. That other DA had other issues. And just to let you know how bad of a district attorney he was one of, the former dude's lawyers during his second impeachment. Yes. But Felicia Rashad, where she comes in, she's always had the cape on for Cosby, always. When he got out, she said something like justice served, or she was happy he was vindicated or something, which he was not. And I guess her PR people or the people at Howard or someone told her, yo, that's not a good look. So within hours or whatever, she had retweeted that she stands with the victims. And, they had some
bullshit apology.
Yeah, I guess they had some discussions at Howard about whether or not she would keep her job. As of now, she's keeping it. And she's entitled to her opinion. I will give her that. But now she has to know that she represents something more than just herself. She's representing Howard University and college campuses. As much as the Supreme Court and the Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Education, and no one wants to talk about it, they are breeding grounds for sexual assaults. So many sexual assaults happen on college campuses. And like in other parts of our society, they often go unreported because of everything that goes along with that.
No, and let's talk about the fact that a lot of these sexual assault cases are by athletes that are protected by the universities and colleges because of the money that they bring in when they play games. That is a big deal. On a lot of times there are these athletes who are sexually assaulting and raping young girls just coming into college, and they're not getting in trouble for it. The women are the ones who are being pushed out of their universities and colleges. What I always tell people is, when people be like, oh, well, how do you know? Because there are false stories everywhere. And I say 97% of all cases are in fact. 97. Why is it that we only focus on the 3%? Why? And we completely ignore the 97% of women who have experienced something of this magnitude on being sexually assaulted, harassed, and raped.
Because, she must have done something to deserve it. And we teach our young girls and our women how not to be attacked, how not to be assaulted, how not to be too sexy. You shouldn't dress like that. Well, I like dressing like this, but what about the message you're sending when you're dressed like this? And knowing that rape is not about how she dresses, it's not even about how she looks, it's not even about how attracted you are to her. It's mostly about some sick sense of power and control that you can exert over someone. But we don't teach our men how not to be raping incels,
Yep.
how to deal with rejection, we are taught how to deal with rejection. Well, honey, you just weren't his type. There are other fish in the sea. But let a woman reject. Oh, how dare you? Like, we don't have the right to say no, and when it's so long that it's still hard to prove marital rape. Like, oh, that's your husband. Like, just because we're married, that doesn't give him the right to take it from me whenever he wants it. So it's just so many fucking layers to that, and how society really, really needs to deal with that issue, and how we still refuse to. And speaking of athletes, just a story that's still developing, which we are running out of time for, and we'll probably talk about at a later date as we get more details and more happen. Trevor Bauer for the LA Dodgers was accused of sexual assault, and like I said, that story is also one that's way too complicated and too much to unpack right now. But so, as one of my favorite news anchors says, we'll watch this space where that is concerned, and talk about that a little bit later on a different show. So, is there anything else that we need to rewind or unpack in this episode of the Wind Down? Did we handle it? Did we get? I think it feels like we talked about a lot.
We did. I did want to give some international news when it comes to like the whole aspect of like sexual assault and everything like that. I don't know if you heard the story, but in Spain, Spain's basically like their Congress has just approved a law that would make non-consensual sex categorized as rape. Before it was like a misdemeanor. And you had to have used violence or intimidation in order to actually get arrested and be put on trial for rape. And it has just come down after 5 years of women, men, like everybody just marching in the streets for this. After 5 years, it has just come where they're supposed to make the final decision on making it into a law by the end of 2021. So just want to say congratulations to all the women who have really worked really hard on making this a possibility, because it's just ridiculous. Like, I was just like, this is just ridiculous that we still got countries that like this is not like a third world country. Like, this is Spain. And so to think that this is still a problem around the world, even in what we consider to be developed countries and Western countries, is amazing to me. And I'm just hoping that as we continue to move on, that every single one of these countries, like the ones who still have those on the books, like, please let's actually be in reality. All right, let's actually work in reality and start protecting our women and our girls from this kind of thing. Just want to put that out there.
I agree. And to end this on a more upbeat note, I just want to send out a congratulations to Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton, who got married this week. I don't know if you watched The Voice, but they finally said I do. And the pictures from the wedding, you can check them out in People or different, sites. Just look it up. But the pictures looked amazing, and they look so happy. And just knowing what they both went through and how they met on The Voice, it's a cute story. So they're a couple that I hope last. And one of my favorite throwback couples, Jennifer 2.0, is still going strong. J-Lo out there living her best life at 50. Girl, she looks good. She like, hey, I'm all
J-Lo is a dream that we will never achieve, but we still look towards every day of our lives.
Fuck that shit. I'm all about that J-Lo vibe. Stay with them younger men, baby. Stay with them. I get it. So, but that does it for this episode of The ReWine. Please be sure to listen, like, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and or Spotify Podcasts, preferably all of the above. You can also keep up to date on the latest in entertainment and pop culture news, as well as other amazing kernels of pop culture goodness at the Popcorn Wind Down. That's it. That's the plug. Pop, 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 pop. I'm getting that sound effect. And thank you. And as always, until next time, I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy. Bye.
Peace.